Welcome to Author Update, your weekly dose of publishing news that actually matters for your career.
Today, Nancy Drew just became public domain along with Miss Marple, Samuel Spade, and a dozen other iconic characters that now you can legally write about. We'll reveal exactly which 1930s books you can use and why Conan the Barbarian is so exciting in 2028. Plus, the
Brace
Novel
yourselves.
Marketing Conference.
Conan is coming.
Conan is coming. The Novel Marketing Conference just sold out for the first time ever. And we've got like 48 hours of wild predictions about the AI bubble that just won't pop and computer prices that are going to go through the roof. And then we'll explain why the anti-AI movement is about to get its very own branded political identity. I didn't say brain dead, I said branded. First of all, Nancy Drew meets Solomon Kane could totally happen. Thomas, how can that happen?
Public Domain Day is here. Disney, several years ago, failed in their ongoing quest to ruin copyright by making it last for an indefinite amount of time. For those of you who don't know, copyright is a very special law that is one of the only laws that we have in the Constitution, and that the purpose for the law is in the Constitution, where the founders of the Republic of the United States stated very clearly that Congress can pass laws regarding copyrights and what the purpose of those copyrights are. And the purpose of the copyrights, I have the text from the actual Constitution here, is to promote progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. So the purpose of copyright is to to promote the useful arts. So originally, your copyright only lasted for 14 years, just like a patent, and you could file to extend it for an additional 7 years, but no one could have a copyright that lasted longer than 21 years. That's how it was until Disney's lawyers started pushing for extensions in the 20th century. And what they did was every 10 years, they would get a law passed that would extend the copyright for another 10 years. And so starting right around the time of Mickey Mouse, this is Steamboat Willie, copyright was frozen and nothing entered the public domain for generations. But finally, Disney lost their ability to perpetuate copyright for eternity. And now we're starting to have public domain works released into the public domain.
Winnie the Pooh horror movies on Amazon Prime.
And so now every January 1st is what we call Public Domain Day, where new characters are released into the public domain. And you may be like, why does this matter for me as an author? Well, the reason why it matters is that part of a copyright is the right to make derivative works. So if you invent Star Wars, and you invent the character of Luke Skywalker, you have the exclusive economic right to write new Luke Skywalker stories that you can then sell to other people or license to other people, but nobody can write a Luke Skywalker story and commercialize it without your permission. Unless it's a parody. There's some other exclusions to copyright. I don't want to get too technical. And I should also point out that I am not a lawyer, although I will say copyright is something I've been studying for over a decade. I'm very passionate about it, and I very much dislike our current copyright law. But that's neither here nor there. I have a bunch of episodes on this, though. I'm going to try to stay focused.
Don't get them started.
So you can write a Sherlock Holmes story, and you always could have, because Sherlock Holmes was before the Disney cutoff. And so Sherlock Holmes has been in the public domain for like 80 years. So every year there's new Sherlock Holmes movies and short stories written by all manner of authors, and anybody can do that with Sherlock Holmes. But you couldn't do that with Nancy Drew. Right. Until today, or rather until yesterday. So the first Nancy Drew book, actually 3 or 4 Nancy Drew books, all entered the public domain yesterday, which means you can republish those books yourself, which isn't very interesting. But more importantly, you can write your own Nancy Drew stories based off of the characters. So you can now move Nancy Drew into your cinematic universe or your literary universe. And the creator of Nancy Drew can't come after you. Now, I will say you have to be a little careful with this, because a character like Nancy Drew continues to get stories written. There have been Nancy Drew stories published almost every year for 80 years. And you can't use any adaptations of Nancy Drew that are more recent. So historically, Winnie the Pooh The version of Winnie the Pooh that's in the public domain is Naked Pooh. And I just got us demonetized. Although we'll talk about that in a second. So Winnie the Pooh wearing a shirt, a little red shirt, that was not introduced. His red shirt was not introduced until the 1960s. And so if you present Winnie the Pooh with a red shirt, your derivative work is off the 1960s version, still copyrighted. But if your Winnie the Pooh is based off the original Winnie the Pooh from the 1920s, you're fine. So with all of
my
that,
wife ixnayed my Winnie the Pooh costume for Halloween this year.
So we're now getting to the point where some really interesting books and some really interesting characters are entering the public domain. And these are characters that you can work with. And for beginning authors particularly, I really like the idea of practicing with real characters in real settings and worlds, so that all you practice with is the narrative. You don't have to worry about world building. You don't have to worry about character development. All of that's been done for you. And you have a built-in fan base. You're much more likely to make much more money creating a derivative work, especially earlier on in your career. And there's this principle of, until you are faithful with that which is another man's, who will give you that which is your own. So this principle of being faithful with the little things, being faithful with characters somebody else has created, and then going off to do your own characters. A lot of authors get this mixed up. I think everyone should write one Sherlock Holmes story to practice writing a mystery and to practice writing a character who's smarter than you. So it's really good for your development as an author. So Sherlock Holmes, though, you've already had access to for a long time, but now you have Samuel Spade from the Maltese Falcon. So if you want to write gritty noir, you can use the original Samuel Spade from the Maltese Falcon. Samuel Spade is in additional books that will be entering the public domain in coming years. But if you're writing your own Samuel Spade story, all of the core elements of him as a character is right there in the Maltese Falcon. You just need to be careful to base it off of the book. Read the book and base it on the book. The movie that came out later, still under copyright. Miss Marple by Agatha Christie is now in the public domain. Hercule Poirot. Help me out, Jonathan.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Hercule Poirot, I'll just say it that way, which is another Agatha Christie detective, entered the public domain, I believe, last year. Betty Boop entered the public domain.
Yeah.
Blondie and Dagwood entered the public domain, but only as an engaged couple. If you want them married, you're going to have to wait a few years. They didn't get married until 1933. And Solomon Kane has already been in the public domain, but he's continuing to roll into the public domain. So for characters, a lot of big-time characters that are entering the public domain became characters through short stories. And so the initial short story may have entered, but as more short stories enter the public domain, you have access to more of their characteristics. Solomon Kane, if y'all don't know, is created by Robert E. Howard, the same creator of Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian and Solomon Kane are like two sides of the coin of what masculinity is. So Conan the Barbarian is this kind of barbaric, non-Christian masculinity. Solomon Kane is Christian masculinity. He is a Presbyterian who hunts vampires and kills them with God's righteous fury. He's a very fascinating character. It's not that he loves the good, the true, and the beautiful. It's that he hates
the evil.
And God has called him to destroy evil, and he kills it with a righteous wrath. He is the wrath of God personified, and he'll often rescue people who are beset by wickedness by hunting down that wickedness. He's a very interesting character, and you can write your own Solomon Kane short story. I encourage you to read Solomon Kane books. The movie, I don't care too much for the movie that came out a while back. I'd encourage you not to watch the movie because you may be tempted to make your character based off of the version in the movie. That version's super duper copyrighted, but the original, the version that generations have loved, which is true for all of these, right? Don't do the Betty Boop from the 90s. Do the Betty Boop from the 30s, right? There's a reason that Betty Boop became iconic, and it was because of how she was back then. Real quick, more characters. Some YA characters. Tintin. My wife's a big fan of Tintin. He's now in the public domain. Nancy Drew. Joe Palooka, who's a boxer. And The Shadow. I don't know if did you ever listen to The Shadow?
I did listen to the old radio dramas of The Shadow.
My parents let me had an old AM TV or radio, and I would listen at night. We could catch stations from Dallas or Houston, and I'd listen through the static to The Shadow late at night. It was an experience that connected me with my ancestors, because The Shadow is a really old character. Although he's only sort of entering the public domain this year, he's entering it more next year. Dick and Jane. So it's some children's characters, Dick and Jane from the Dick and Jane books. You can use them. Pluto from the Chain Gang by Walt Disney's kind of entering the public domain, although it's still under trademark and it had a different name. The Little Engine That Could is now in the public domain. So you can make your own version of the Little Engine That Could. Real quick, the top 10 best-selling books of 1930. Cimarron by Edna Ferber. Exile by Warwick Deeping. The Woman of Andros by Thornton Wilder. Years of Grace by Margaret Ayer Barnes. Angel Pavement by J.B. Priestley. The Door by Mary Roberts Reinhardt. Rogue Eris by Hugh Walpole. Chances by A. Hamilton Gibbs. Young Man of Manhattan by Catherine Brush, and 24 Hours by Louis Bromfield. Which is interesting. None of those books are books I'm familiar with, which gives you a little bit of a sense of bestsellers often don't last the test of time.
Yeah.
Because to be a bestseller, you often have to be very in tune with the zeitgeist of that year. And being in tune with the zeitgeist of that year is not what makes a book a classic. For a book to be a classic, it has to continue to resonate, which means it has to be connected with kind of eternal feelings that are in people's hearts and not cultural feelings. And so being a classic and a bestseller, these are like things that pull against each other. It's very rare for a book to be both a bestseller and a classic.
Alternatively, Solomon Kane was originally released in magazines that were written for a very small segment of society that read science fiction and fantasy magazine. They were like serials released in these
Although those
cheap
magazines were crazy popular back in the day. Weird Tales had a massive subscriber base, especially compared to the overall population. Real quick, I want to talk about some characters that are entering the public domain next year. So you can start writing a character now and publish it on January 1st of next year or sometime next year, which is actually the better way to do it, to skate to where the puck is headed, which is why I keep hinting about Conan the Barbarian. He's 2 years away. But next year, Father Brown by G.K. Chesterton. Really fun character to work with. He's a priest who fights demons and evil, but through the power of being a priest in, I think, 1920s England. Tarzan is entering the public domain, the original one. John Carter of Mars is his stories are starting to enter the public domain. John Carter inspired Star Wars and Dune, and basically every space opera you've seen are all derived from John Carter. Buck Rogers started in 1931, so he's entering the public domain, and Little Orphan Annie are entering the public domain. So every year we're going to start getting more and more characters that you can work with.
And I have a recommendation for how to use this kind of stuff. Instead of writing like a pure Solomon Kane story, have Solomon Kane come into your universe and kind of, I think that's better for establishing a brand identity, to have your universe, have your characters, and then Solomon Kane is there too. Like more of a crossover kind of idea, I think would be stronger. And then you don't run into the, now an amateur is writing in my favorite universe with my favorite character hatred.
Although if it's good, you won't get that hatred. So somebody says Tarzan, presumably Jane. Not necessarily. And this is a really good point.
Right.
So it may be that the very first short stories featuring Tarzan were published in 1931, but Jane wasn't introduced until 1932 or 1933. And so you may not get Jane until later. Now, it may be that Jane was introduced right away. And so this is why doing a little bit of research is important, and why you shouldn't take legal advice from podcasters or financial advice that we're going to get to here in a second. A couple of quick housekeeping things. One, Author Update is now semi-monetized. So while we don't have ads yet on this new channel that we just started, we do accept super chats now. So this is a great way to support the show and to give your chat some prominence. If you hit super chat, it will ask you for a donation, and if it's not inappropriate, we will read it today.
If it's inappropriate, I'll read it.
We will read, if you super chat us, we will read it for sure. We grab some of the comments and throw them up on screen. But also don't forget to like and subscribe and to ring the bell. It does help us as we walk towards remonetizing, because we had to start over basically from scratch on this new channel. Also, the Novel Marketing Conference is now 100% sold out. So the last year sold out the super tickets and the regular tickets. This year So I think we sold out the standard tickets. This year, all the tickets are sold. I think there's some people selling used tickets on authormedia.social, but I think those people sold their tickets as well. So you're basically out of luck. You can monitor on authormedia.social if somebody has something come up and they may be selling their ticket at the last minute. But yeah, we're excited about that. We will open up ticket sales for 2027 at some point. So excited that the conference is sold out. It'll be packed. It should be a lot of fun. And real quick, before we get to the New Year's predictions, this is your last day to enter the Arsenal Writing Challenge. Jonathan?
That's right. So tomorrow is session 0 for when I get together and I start yelling at you guys about how you're going to write your books for the next month. So far, I have a group of authors who are going to write a book next month, and they're going to do it in a month. And they're going to do it under my loving gaze the whole time. So I've been doing nonstop paperwork for this, sending out the trackers and everything that everyone needs. And we're doing session 0 tomorrow. There is a link to sign up. You can get in all the way up till 16:59 tomorrow, which is 4:59 Mountain Standard Time for those of you civilian dirtbags.
If you want a Marine sergeant to keep you motivated, this is something
motivated is a strong word.
Make sure you get it done.
You'll
this
get
is
it
something
done.
you should check out. If you're wanting encouragement and love and an understanding ear on why you're falling behind, this is not the thing for you. So if you want results and you don't care how terrible you are made to feel while you're generating those results, maybe this is something to check out. All right. It's time for my New Year's predictions. My New Year's predictions last year, very popular. It was one of my most popular videos I ever created on all of novel marketing. I think it's still in my top 5 total episodes. And I spend a lot of time studying history. I spend a lot of time getting a sense of where the zeitgeist is, where the culture is, and where trends are headed. And I have some predictions here on where I think publishing is headed and society as in general. So I'm going to do an easy prediction, and then I'm going to do my controversial one, and I have some more easy predictions. So easy prediction. The Anthropic settlement is going to go out. The checks are going to start going out this year. And drama will ensue because authors are not going to get as much money as they were expecting, and it's going to end up being a lot more complicated for the law firm. There's already drama as the law firm is wanting $300 million to administrate this.
That
is a big basket of money for the law firm. Costs. So if there's a lot of ifs here, right? So the Anthropic settlement is going out, but the law firm gets a bite at the apple. Your publisher potentially gets a bite at the apple, and you may not get a bite at the apple if your publisher didn't file the copyright paperwork properly, or if you didn't file the copyright paperwork properly. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another class action lawsuit or more rippling from this one as authors sue their publishers for not filing the copyrights as they are contractually obligated to do, or taking their publishers to arbitration, which can actually get more expensive than a class action settlement.
Just not sending authors what authors think they deserve, and so you get that fighting too. This is like when somebody rich dies and everyone starts picking over the inheritance. It becomes vastly smaller.
So it usually costs about $10,000 for a company to go into arbitration, which is usually cheaper than a court case. But let's say you're a publisher and you have 500 authors who all trigger arbitration with you, and that's $10,000 per author. Suddenly you're looking at $5 million worth of expenses. This could be a huge mess. So anyway, that's my first prediction. But some authors are going to get money, and I have a lot of friends who are authors who have dozens of books in the settlement, and they are looking at potentially tens of thousands of dollars getting in as a check. I will point out, though, that because this is not a personal injury related settlement, the revenue from this is likely taxable. So usually when people get money from a company, there's some sort of personal injury element, and the taxation issues aren't as big. This is not like that. Okay, next issue. And Jonathan may disagree with me on this prediction, but I predict that the AI bubble will not pop. particularly not pop the way everyone thinks it's going to pop.
Yeah.
I have been trying to decide if I have the courage to take this stand, and I am. So one of the signs of a bubble is irrational exuberance. And when everyone thinks there's a bubble, there can't be a bubble. Because the very nature of a bubble requires everyone to be saying there's no bubble, it's a for sure thing, and nobody is saying that. In fact, if you listen to the chatter, it's all anti-AI, and yet it's growing anyway, and the growth is being driven by actual market demand. Another key factor for a bubble is rampant speculation. But there are no AI companies on the stock exchange for you to speculate in. OpenAI, privately held. Anthropic, privately held. XAI, privately held. So if you wanted to buy stock that would give you exposure to AI, you could buy stock in Meta, which has some exposure to AI, and you could buy stock in Google, which has some exposure to AI. But that's not really a good way to do it, because those companies are so big that their AI efforts are just a drop in the bucket. If the AI efforts completely fail, the company will be fine. And if the AI goes to the moon, the company will only go up a little bit because all their other things won't be affected. And to give you a sense of this, the metaverse bubble was the big last bubble to pop. Everyone thought the metaverse was going to be the new thing. Facebook renamed itself to Meta. They were so convinced that it was the new thing. And they invested $80 billion, all of which is lost, and their stock is fine. Meta is still worth billions and billions of dollars because their core products of Instagram and Facebook are still bringing in cash hand over fist. And because of this, the metaverse popping and Meta having unique exposure to the metaverse popping, sure, it caused their stock price to go down. They have underperformed expectations, but they're still around. They're still making money, and they'll still be around making money next year. They're likely going to miss the AI. Meta has not done a good job with AI so far. They have done just enough AI to give them exposure to lawsuits from authors, but not enough to actually make any money because nobody uses Llama. If you wanted to buy stock in AI, there's just no way to do it other than buying NVIDIA stock. So when people are talking about the AI bubble, they're typically talking about NVIDIA. And I want to explain kind of what this looks like. NVIDIA is not an AI company. They're a company that makes graphics processing units, the things that are in your Xbox or your PlayStation. If you have a gaming PC, they're in that. And if you're building a crypto farm for mining cryptocurrencies, GPUs are used for mining cryptocurrencies. In fact, NVIDIA's first big pop in their stock price was not because of AI. It was from cryptocurrencies, as it became really a good investment to buy NVIDIA chips and run them like crazy mining Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. And NVIDIA stock has gone to the moon. But here's the thing. NVIDIA has sold every single chip that they have made. And they have sold every single chip that they're going to make for all of 2026. So we're now on January 2nd of 2026, and NVIDIA has already sold out of all of the stock that they are going to make. The demand is that high for their chips, and their ability to meet the demand is not sufficient for the demand, which is having a lot of knock-on effects for a lot of other parts of the market, and it's really going to affect authors in some interesting ways. So there's this hope amongst some authors and some people generally that the AI bubble is going to burst and everything's going to go back the way it was. And everyone's going to stop using AI, and it'll be like the good old days in 2019.
Because the stock market, we stopped using that after, it collapsed. Or the housing market, we stopped using that after it collapsed.
None of the bubbles have worked that way. The railroad bubble of the 1850s did not cause railroad engines to stop going down the tracks. In fact, bankruptcy law was specifically invented around that time to allow companies to go out of business, but the trains to keep running on the tracks, because we all agreed that it's valuable for the train to run on the track, even if the company went out of business. We created Chapter 11 in the bankruptcy code around that time so that a company could go bankrupt, that creditors could take over the company and keep running the trains, because everybody agreed these trains are great. Being able to load up grain in one place and very inexpensively move it to a place that's way far away. We all want that. But a lot of railroad companies went out of business because they'd run a line out to some town and they'd spend a fortune putting down the track to do that. And they weren't able to get the money back fast enough, and the creditors came calling and they went out of business. But the track stayed there. The railroads kept running. Same thing happened with the automotive bubble in the 1910s. Although, unlike the railroad bubble, the automobile bubble, or what was known at the time as automobile mania, which is such a delicious aughts phrase.
Maniac.
Yeah, it didn't cause people to stop driving cars. In fact, the demand for automobiles was so high that the bubble never popped. It just slowly lost air as innovation slowed down. There was a time in the early 1900s when every few years some massive new breakthrough, like a differential gear and being able to provide torque to the wheels separately, like little things that we don't really understand how they work now or don't appreciate now, but it completely changed everything. You get a new innovation like this every couple of years. The original Model T only provided power, I think, to one wheel in the back. It was very easy for it to get stuck in ruts. The dot-com bubble bursting didn't cause people to stop using websites. The social media bubble bursting didn't cause people to stop using social media. It just caused them to stop using MySpace and Friendster. And that, I think, is the real metaphor for what we're seeing with AI. Are all of the AI companies going to go to the moon? No. Is AI going to go away? No. So there will be winners and there will be losers, and the winners are going to gobble up everything that the losers lost as we see the inevitable consolidation of the market.
The problem is that the metaphor people are using is wrong. Like the idea of a bubble. Well, what do bubbles do? They pop. Every bubble pops, right? And then it's completely destroyed, right? The bubble is gone. Okay. My kids love playing with bubbles. I see bubbles all the time. Okay. None of these have operated as a bubble. They're not completely destroyed when they're gone. And also, from a behavioral aspect, you have people constantly massaging, taking risks, trying to control the descent or ascent as things are going. Then you have government interference, which usually happens, and that slows everything down. So you're looking at when you start applying outside interference or hundreds of thousands of actors within a very complicated system, you're not going to get this burst effect. You're going to, because the American economic system is extremely competitive. You have guys who are going to be snapping each other up, taking risks, overextending, getting annihilated, being absorbed, selling out. There guys who are going to sell out because they think it's going to happen. Now there's an influx of new stuff coming in. We saw the same thing when we were targeting terrorists in Iraq, because when you strike a target, all the other potential targets react to the strike. They just don't know why the strike happened. So now you have guys who are like, I see a plane in the sky. They know we're here. Dude, we have no idea. Like, it's a desert. What do you think we're looking at? Okay. Like, they wouldn't say certain words in the air because they think the CIA is listening to them from the power outlet. Okay. All the, when you lean in and talk to a light bulb in your hotel room because you think that's where the bug is. This kind of superstition that happens when things are happening elsewhere and you don't know why they're happening. This is how the real world reacts to these kinds of situations. So I agree with Thomas. The bubble is not going to burst. It's going to adapt. AI is way too useful. It is way too useful to go away. Unless we have a religious, like the actual Butlerian jihad come about.
Which actually, this is probably a good place for me to put that prediction. I had that later on, but I think I'm going to move this to right here. I think that we're going to see this year the rise of an anti-AI faction that will get a name and a political identity. So up to this point, we've been referring to this as the anti-Butlerian jihad, which is a reference that's a really good reference for people who are not in that group. So if you have read Dune and you have read the Dune prequels, the anti-Butlerian jihad is this jihad, a holy war of humans against the thinking machines. That's why there's no computers in the Dune universe. You have mentats, which are humans that are trained to operate like computers, but you don't have any thinking machines because there was a whole religion created to stamp out these thinking machines. The problem is the kind of people who are against AI are not the same kind of people who read the books of Dune. I think the overlap of those two groups is maybe 12 total people.
The difference goes between, Erasmus threw Serena's baby from a balcony and then, the people that are on YouTube or Reddit.
Yeah. So they're going to have their own name. They'll form their own political identity. We're starting to see the very beginnings of this with Bernie Sanders is kind of the first one who has started a crusade against AI. And it's predominantly right now it's in the left. I don't know if the left is going to give it its energy long term, because I think there's people on the right who are also threatened by AI. Alexander McCrease has written about this. There are people in both the left and the right who are against AI for their own reasons. The problem in the left is much more passionately against AI. You go on Blue Sky and you say that you write with AI, they will burn you at the stake. You won't get that same experience on Twitter or on X. So right now you'd think, oh, all of the anti-AI energy is going to come from the left. But the problem with this is a existential, fundamental religious and worldview conflict. And that is people on the left, progressives, believe in progress. This is like their defining belief. They believe that things get better over time. Technology makes things better over time. People on the right do not believe this. People on the right believe that culture goes in cycles, and there are good times create strong. Strong men create good times create weak men create bad times create strong men, and the cycle turns ever onward. Right, that's the core. There's nothing new under the sun. You see something that is new, really it is old. That's the core fundamental belief. So conservatives see society going around in a circle, or arguably going around a circle the way something goes around in a circle in a toilet, right? Where it's going around and around, but it's slowly getting worse, right? The head of gold is replaced with the arms of silver, and the arms of silver are replaced with the abdomen of bronze, until finally you're at the feet made of iron and clay, right? So it's like things are degressing. So progressives, to become truly anti-AI, they have to renounce their view in progress. They have to settle with themselves that technological change can be bad and progress can be bad. And that is either going to split the movement, or they'll just live with that intellectual inconsistency, which maybe they'll be totally fine with. Because I will say the left has not been exactly bothered by intellectual consistency issues up to this point.
Right. I don't know if it's the concept of progress itself that they're married to.
It's big in their branding.
so progress is just, progress is just momentum. That's just distance traveled. I think it's more like progress toward something, unity, tolerance, a more green energy production kind of thing. The more utopian kind of stuff you see in a lot of sci-fi. That's kind of where they want to go to. So anything that makes progress, like we're gonna get political this episode. Zoran Mamdani, right? The things he announced this past week by the head of the fire department, or the commissioner of New York City's fire department has never been a firefighter, but that's not a big deal. Or the rugged individualism will be replaced by the warmth of collectivism, or the fact that his head of council is the guy who defended Al Qaeda in 9/11.
Let's bring it back, Jonathan. Let's bring it back.
No, I'm making a point.
Okay.
There's all kinds of progress that's being made here, but it's toward an end goal. And I don't agree with you. Conservatives are also against AI writing, or writers using AI. I'm in a lot of those groups where they're more of a competency kind of argument. Instead of it's destroying the environment, or it's inhuman, it's not art. It's more like you suck because you use AI. You're not good enough to make art the way it's supposed to be made.
And it's a spiritual argument that it's soulless, that it's hollow and empty, or that it's possessed with demons. So the conversation on the left and the right is in totally different universes.
Well, we have
regarding AI.
We have different reason-generating mechanisms, paths that we follow for why we do things, and that's not left and right. That's individual people a lot of people align with this segment, like the right is fragmenting, so you can actually see the right actually. A lot of reasons why people are on the right, and they're totally different from each other, and that's going to be fun to watch work out. But the the problem people are having with AI, and I kind of want to give my philosophy on this because people are starting to call me an AI apologist because we talk about this so much on the show.
He's the grumpy
Like,
one on AI. Y'all don't
yeah,
realize
I don't like, I don't care. Okay, I like things that work. I'm not an AI apologist. I don't care if the robots win. I don't care if I don't even like people that much. What makes you think I like robots? But I want authors to win. And so I want authors to use tools that work. Okay? It's like the whole thing in the Marine Corps. It's like, "Oh, I qualified with iron sights and you guys are using ACOGs or the scopes now." Like, "Yeah, now we can shoot better. That's more better." Like,
the goal is not actually to suffer; it's to adapt, improvise, and overcome. It's
yeah,
like
we want
if you have to
win.
suffer to overcome, that's fine. But the goal is the overcoming
When
part.
we're shooting at each other, I want to shoot more better than the other guy.
Anne brings up, she's asking if I have a merch store where I'm selling mugs
I
like the one I'm
told
thinking
you.
about.
I
Yeah,
told
okay.
you.
If there's demand for a merch store, I will create a merch store where people can order these. I've thought about having mugs at the conference. I'm going to get the alignment fixed. There's some slight alignment issues. This is a prototype. But I should move on to some of the other predictions real quick, although I'm sure we'll circle back around on AI. So I wanted to compare the AI bubble with the gold and silver bubble that nobody is talking about. So silver has hovered around $25 an ounce for 10 years. It goes up, it goes down, all the way up to 27, all the way down to 24. And then it got past 30. It's like, oh my gosh, silver is getting high. In the last 6 months, silver's gone from $30 an ounce to $80 an ounce. Gold hovered between $1,300 and $2,000 for 10 years. It kind of bounced around there. Do you know what gold is selling for an ounce right now? $4,500. You think Nvidia stock is going to the moon, gold and silver is going to the moon. And these do have the signs of irrational exuberance. One, nobody's talking about gold and silver being a bubble. I'm not hearing any chatter about that. There's rampant speculation and anyone can buy in. So while not everyone can buy stock in XAI or OpenAI, anybody can buy silver. Anybody can buy gold. Now, on the other hand, it's possible, like everyone's like, oh, the dollar is collapsing. Well, it's like, well, for the dollar to collapse, it has to collapse in relation to the other fiat currencies. And as much as we have problems with our Federal Reserve and with our financial management in the United
We're
States,
still doing better.
everybody else is worse, right? We're all running away from the bear. And while we're hobbling on one feet, at least we're still on our feet. Meanwhile, the euro is like crawling and the yen is like pulling itself forward with a single hand. And it's like all the bear is coming for us all. It's going to come for the dollar last. But it's possible that all of the rampant speculation, all of the money printing during COVID, which is now finally matriculating past the banks and into the economy, this is actually just fiat currencies just fundamentally losing value in relation to the dollar. I don't know. This is why you shouldn't take financial advice from podcasters. But I will say there's more likely to be a gold and silver bubble, but it's not going to crash to zero, right? Gold never goes to zero, but it probably won't, or may not stay at 4,500. I think silver might more likely stay because it's used for weapons and actually for chips like AI.
Yeah.
But again, part of it is China is panicking and they're not allowing any silver to leave the country. So it's really complicated. But that's what you should be. Next time somebody talks about the AI bubble, ask them, what do you think about the gold and silver bubble? Just to get a sense of how well researched they are.
So we're talking about purchasing power, right? With gold and silver, as fiat currencies start to descend, people will panic and will buy things they think are trustworthy, which would be gold and silver. Historically, the problem is when currency has plummeted to that point, no one's going to be able to buy any of the gold and silver that they've stockpiled. You're going to be Robinson Crusoe on the island who found a chest of gold and jewels, and you're going to be like, this is worthless to me. I can't eat this.
Yeah. Yeah, gold does not have gold bros like crypto has crypto bros. The guys who are in favor of gold are these like old boomer types who've been buying gold every year for
Ever
the
since
last
Rush
20
Limbaugh
years.
ran
Yeah.
commercials on the radio, yeah.
It's a very different demographic.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I don't want to belabor this too much, but it's something to keep an eye on. One thing that will impact you, and another prediction, this is a really easy prediction, computers are going to get more expensive. So all of the computer makers in the world can't keep up with the demand for AI chips. And the result is a lot of the computer makers who were making parts for consumer machines, like your smartphone and your laptop, have switched. One of the big three memory makers no longer makes memory for consumers at all. They're only making memory for servers and server farms because the demand in crypto farms and AI data centers is so high, they've just switched altogether. And the result has been memory has gone through the roof in price. Now, I saw this because for my 40th birthday, I was like, what kind of midlife crisis can I afford? And I was like, I can't afford much. So I didn't get a new
I'm already
car.
a World War II historical buff.
Yeah, I was like, I'm already into World War II history. I'm already into ancient Roman history.
The
I'm
Roman
basically
Empire.
already an old man shouting at clouds. But I'm like, I know what I can do. I'll buy myself some new parts to upgrade my PC. So I've been building computers since I was a kid. And I almost bought the memory in September, but I didn't turn 40 till November. Well, in September, 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, $80. When I went to go start shopping in November, 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM had gone up to $250. And by the time I was ready to buy, it was like $350. The price had just gone straight up. There are places now that you can't even get a price. You go to the store and they just check what the spot price is. It's like buying silver or lobster. And the result has been PlayStation and Xbox have both indefinitely suspended plans for releasing their new consoles. The Switch 2 may go out of stock. Computer manufacturers who didn't lock in their supply before everything went crazy are having to dramatically raise their prices, which is really hurting them in comparison with other companies. So
Yeah.
Apple buys and locks in their pricing years ahead of time. In fact, they go to TSMC and they pay in cash years ahead of time so that TSMC can get and build new fabs and they get first dibs on parts, which is why Apple computers are so much faster than PCs right now, because they're the first ones with the 4 nanometer. They're the first ones with the 3 nanometer. And so currently, Apple is unaffected by the skyrocketing price rise. So you can buy a 32 gigabyte RTX 5090, which is an NVIDIA graphics card for a gaming PC, for $3,500 to $5,000. Or for that same money, you could buy an M4 MacBook Air with 32 gigabytes of unified memory, all of which is available for the video card for less money, and you get an entire computer.
Yeah.
You get the screen and the keyboard and the webcam and the speakers. And so Apple is going to become, in 2026, potentially the low-cost leader because they locked in pricing way ahead of time, which is just like the idea of Apple being the low-cost leader is blowing my mind right now.
Right? But you also have to watch what's happening in the world because China's running military exercises right now, and they've encircled Taiwan on their military exercise. Okay? This is going to affect smartphones and computers and video game consoles and anything that uses those chips is going to be affected by this exercise.
Apple, I was talking with a Apple employee, and I won't say who because I don't know if this is public information, but he was talking about how Apple has an entire year's worth of operating expenses in cash in the bank just in case China blockades Taiwan, because it's such an existential threat. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that all of the NVIDIA chips come from one factory in Taiwan. NVIDIA doesn't make their own chips. Apple doesn't make their own chips. Everybody except either get 90% of the high-end chips come from TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductors. And they have these handful of factories where all of the high-end chips are made. And you block time in their fabricator to fabricate your chip. So Apple's like, we want Tuesdays. And then NVIDIA's like, we want Thursdays. It's not really how it works. They'll buy like blocks a month or whatever. But this one factory is making all the super chips. And if that factory loses power, it will cease to function for months because semiconductors deal with every element on the periodic table. And if they lose power even for a little bit, it causes the semiconductor to lose operation for a long time. I know this because here in Austin, we have a Samsung fab that makes semiconductors, and they lost power for a short time, and it took them months to get back up and running because we had the snowpocalypse, and it
Yeah.
became politically, and they had locked anyway. It's a big drama thing. Again, I have a lot of friends who talk to me off the record about stuff. I need to be careful what I say. But it's all off the record. But everyone who bought a new Mac during the Black Friday deal is going to feel like some future profit wizard because
Yeah.
you're able to get 16 gigabyte unified memory computer for $750. It's still on Amazon, the one I linked to for the Black Friday deal. I think it's the price gone up to $800. It's a really, really good price. Now, I don't know if Apple's going to raise their prices because everyone else is raising their prices. It'll be very interesting to watch, but computers are going to get more expensive because the two kinds of chips that are getting hit the hardest is RAM, random access memory, so your DRAM and your VRAM.
Yeah.
Apple works around this because they have unified memory, so they allow, since they have the system on a chip, the GPU and the CPU can both use the same memory. But everybody else has to buy that memory separately. And the other thing that's getting hit is SSDs, which is the what you would refer to as hard disk space. It's the information you store in your computer. These are core parts of your computer you can't have a computer without having. Like, you have a computer without RAM, it won't turn on. It's a core, and if you don't have a hard drive or a hard disk. So computers are going to get more expensive. This is potentially a good time to buy a new computer before the prices go up more from the manufacturers who've locked in supply. So some of the PC manufacturers locked in supply for some amount of time, and they're keeping the prices down. This is reminding me of when oil prices skyrocketed in the late 2010s. I think in 2009, there was some shock to the oil price, and oil suddenly got really expensive. And all of the airlines had to have a fuel surcharge, except for Southwest, because Southwest had locked in futures contracts. So they were able to buy their oil, their jet fuel at the lower prices because they had pre-committed. And so they had a huge cost advantage for years over the other airlines because they had locked in. All right. We're going to...
real quick, because I actually got a lot of this on my latest Author Arsenal episode because I did Vellum, right? Well, Vellum only works on Macs. And so I had like half of my comments are like, does it go on PC? Well, no, I told you it only went on Mac. Okay. Well, do Atticus. No, I wanted to do Vellum. But you have to, like, the way other PC computer manufacturers make their computers is they're disposable. You're supposed to change them out every 2 years. Well, if now they're disposable and you're already in a buying habit because it's less expensive to buy one of these disposable laptops than it is to buy an AirBook, then you're already in a bad habit for when this spike happens because of geopolitical events. And now you're stuck shelling out the same price you would have for a Mac Air for your 2-year disposable laptop. So keep this kind of thing in mind. I made the switch to Apple a while ago because they just last way freaking longer. If you need to survive the famine that's coming where people on our income level won't be able to afford computers,
it's either going to be bad because of all the AI stuff that we talked about, or it will be catastrophically bad if China and Taiwan actually get into their hot conflict, or even a warm conflict, because they don't actually have to exchange missiles for China to block Taiwan's access to the world markets. If China doesn't let the boats through to bring the chips, that's suddenly a new phone is $3,000 or $4,000, and or you just can't buy one
if there is one.
Right.
Yeah.
And I did a whole episode on this, actually. I did a whole episode several years ago breaking down what the impact would be for authors if China and Taiwan were to go into a shooting match. And I even researched the impact on paper prices. And I was doing deep research on Taiwanese lumber. All of this was before AI would have helped me do this research really easily. So do go back and listen to that episode, because past Thomas really suffered to make an episode that hopefully will not be relevant. Okay. My next prediction is that we're going to continue to see contraction amongst traditional publishers. This was my big controversial prediction of last year, and it proved to be 100% correct. We have covered publishers closing and publishers having kind of emergency acquisitions constantly on Author Update. It's like another report. And another report's bad for publishers. We ended 25 with some good news about retailers. So Barnes & Noble's having some good times. But Barnes & Noble doing well does not mean that the publishers, the traditional publishers, are doing well. Because Barnes & Noble is potentially gaining their sales off of indie bookstores suffering, or from Amazon selling fewer books. And Amazon selling fewer books hardly shows up in Amazon's numbers because they make their money a million different ways. But Barnes & Noble gobbling up a few percentages from Amazon is totally enough for Barnes & Noble to live very happily on off the crumbs that fall off the Amazon table.
Right.
So to give you an idea, in 2025, of the top 10 best-selling nonfiction books, 9 of them were not written or published in 2025. So all of the big publishers working all year, and remember, books tend to sell best when they're first released.
Yeah.
Despite all of that, they couldn't write any hits. The only book that actually ranked in the top 10 was Kamala Harris's memoir, which was like a gimme, right? Political candidates writing memoirs, they always go to the top 10. Since the very first one to do this was President, he was the general in the Civil War. Oh my gosh. The guy
Lee?
who's...
No.
Jack.
Grant.
President Grant published a memoir. It was a smash hit. It finally solved his financial problems, because he had financial problems
and finally allowed him to drink.
And he had financial problems as president. He finally is done being president. He publishes his memoir. All of his financial problems go away, and then he dies. But his family had good money for a long time, and political memoirs have been a main thing ever since. So since the 1860s, this is like a gimme.
But even
and they haven't been able to beat that. Other than
last year, because like what Prince Andrew, or used to be Prince Andrew, released his last year, and that didn't do.
I think that was late 24. I think his book came out in just. I may be wrong. Spare. Somebody fact check us. When did Spare? What was the publication date? I want to say it was December. But this, according to the New York Times, I'll link to it in the blog version of this episode. But this tells you that the publishers are really floundering. If they can't place books in the top 10 total sales, if they can't beat their own backlists, it means that those pub boards have no idea what readers are wanting right now, or they're so blinded by their political and religious views that they're unwilling to publish the kind of books that people outside of the New York City bubble want to read. Because people in New York City elected Zohran Mamdani. They think that the warmth of collectivism is something that's a good thing. They don't know that outside of New York City, everyone thinks they're crazy.
Dude, it was released in 2023.
Spare?
Yeah. January of 23.
Yeah. It's been out for a while.
Time has been flying for me.
So we saw a lot of closures. We saw a lot of desperation acquisitions. Like I said, I think that's going to continue. I think traditional publishers are going to continue to struggle, and indie authors are going to continue to gain market share. I don't see this as a going out on a limb prediction. Jonathan, I'm curious to hear what your New Year's predictions are, and then we'll get to ChatGPT's predictions. That was very popular last year.
Yeah.
Last year I asked ChatGPT for predictions, and then I critiqued those predictions.
What did the machine prophet say?
Yes.
So I do more predictions on a behavioral basis, and behavior among authors is not going to change too much. Authors are going to keep whining at a ratio of about 2 to 1 of actual writing that they do. There's going to be a lot of opinions on social media, because social media is death to production, and they're going to write more words on useless opinions on social media than they're going to in actual novels, which would make them actual money. There's a thing I like to talk about: sensual morality. This is a trap people get sucked into, where they feel like a good person, and that's where a lot of people get stuck, because instead of actually doing hard things that make you more productive and make you an actually more worthwhile person, they would rather go the easy way, take a hard stance like anti-AI or anti-electric cars or whatever, and feel like a good person because they're standing in for this crusade. And that's where these crusades are going to draw a lot of their members from. So if a crusade starts, if a trend starts or momentum starts in something, it's going to draw a lot of adherents from people who just want to feel good. They want to feel like good people. And that's usually the behavioral aspect of what causes a movement to gain so much momentum forward. It's I was talking to my writing group about it earlier today, like Trump derangement syndrome. Most of the influencers, like the news commentators and stuff, they hated Trump, and then they went and met him for some reason. They're like, he was actually a nice guy. Like, it was actually really fun to meet him. He's got a great sense of. I hate everything he does, but he's got a great sense of humor. They didn't actually know him, and they were just, you're standing against the bad guy, orange man bad, whatever. And whatever reason you do that for is fine. I have plenty of my problems against Trump. I'm not a Trump apologist either. But the reason why they were standing against that kind of thing is they wanted to feel like a good person. And in order to feel like a good person easily, you need a worse person to be better than. And then you need to yell at that person in front of other people. And, the easiest way not to get in trouble in the Marine Corps is find a guy with a worse shave than you. This is the idea of in the zombie apocalypse, I don't have to be faster than the zombies. I got to be faster than you. And you're going to have that kind of thing continuing to progress throughout 2026. So, and guard yourselves as well so you don't get sucked into that kind of time-wasting garbage that could potentially destroy your brand. We saw a lot of author brands detonated by trying to cash in on trends and momentums that ultimately sputtered out or made them look awful, that made them look terrible.
Or they were spending time with their author friends and doing what was fashionable with their author friends
Echo
rather
chambers.
than paying attention with what was popular with their readers. And that because you can get away with anything as long as your readers are cool with it, right? It your support, your financial support, your moral support ultimately comes from your readers, right? If they support what you're doing and the stances that you're taking, then you're fine. And if they don't, then you're not fine. I want to go back to one of these predictions because I didn't connect it to this, and that's the Windows 10, Windows 11.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things exacerbating this drama is that Windows 10 supposedly is having its end of life. And Microsoft's like, we're not going to support it anymore. But then when the deadline rolled around, October 25th, they're like, wow, RAM is really expensive. People aren't upgrading. We'll support it for another year. So they're still doing security updates. And if the RAM prices continue being crazy, I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft supports Windows 10 for another year. I will say, my new computer that I built, I ended up getting a slower CPU, and I ended up going with DDR4 RAM on the slower CPU than with DDR5 RAM. And I did not upgrade to Windows 11 because Windows 11 is garbage. I'm staying with Windows 10. I have not heard one reason to upgrade, and I've heard many, many reasons about how Windows 11
If you are
is
on
worse.
the good version of Windows, don't upgrade to the next one. Just wait for the one after that one.
So Windows is very famous for the good versions being every other version, right? Windows Vista, you just skip Windows Vista, just hold on to Windows XP until you skip to Windows 7, and then stay with Windows 7. Don't switch to Windows 8, and then you get Windows 10, hold on to it. So I am using that strategy. I'm going to hold on. You can take Windows 10 for my cold, dead hands. I'll switch to a Linux potentially before I switch to Windows 11. Especially because the privacy concerns and the way they're incorporating AI. I think the first loser in the AI race is going to be Microsoft, probably, because everyone hates Copilot. Like, people love ChatGPT, people love Grok and Gemini. People pity Llama, but they don't hate Llama. But people hate Copilot.
They hate Copilot.
They hate Copilot with the burning passion of a thousand
It's also their
suns.
workplace AI, though. That's another behavioral factor, is that every workplace buys these workplace upgrades for their computers. Well, they all came with Copilot. So now people are associating Copilot with work, and work that doesn't get done as well now.
And yeah, it's not as good. You get better results from just using the free version of ChatGPT. Okay, so we're going to very briefly go over ChatGPT's New Year's predictions. This was a lot of fun last year. Last year I had a robot voice read the predictions. This year I'm going to have Jonathan impersonate a robot voice while he reads the prediction. So you have to do it in a robot voice, or people are going to think these predictions are coming from you.
What kind of robot, though? Are we doing iRobot? Are we doing
No,
Terminator?
just do monotone robot.
Okay. It will feel like a margin recession, even when unit sales look fine. Publishers and indies will talk about a slow year because costs and ad competition keep rising while reader spending stays selective. The trade revenue softness has already shown up in AAP reporting, which is why you will see more focus on fewer, bigger bets.
That fewer, bigger books is always a prediction. Every publisher tries to do that, and then they always end up publishing more books because they can't help themselves.
Yeah.
But margins getting squeezed, I think, is going to happen. There's a lot of supply chain issues that are going to hit trad publishers particularly. They're not hitting indie authors. Indie authors have the exact same margins now that they had 10 years ago, at least in ebooks, and actually better margins than they had 10 years ago in audiobooks. So this is particularly a paper supply chain issue, but I actually agree with this prediction of ChatGPT's.
Print will get more expensive and pricing discipline will get harsher. Expect more list price increases, more hardcover first thinking for certain genres, and more ruthless trim size and page count decisions. Ingram Spark has announced pricing changes effective February 1st, 2026, which will force a lot of indies to rerun their math.
I'm rolling my eyes here. Ingram Spark price increase was in line with inflation. It was like 2%, 3%. I was like, okay. I mean, that sure. Prices go up every year. Inflation happens. But yeah, I think list prices are going to go up. Books are going to get more expensive. It's sure. I don't think this is a big prediction, but I don't have any major disagreements with it.
Audiobooks keep stealing share from both ebook and hardcover. You will see more audio first launches, more aggressive audio promos, and more authors treating audio as the primary format for their core readers. The market data and mainstream reporting both point the same direction.
Yeah. So the easiest trends to predict are trend is happening this year, trend will continue or accelerate next year. And I think audiobooks will continue to gain market share. They're really well positioned for doing well because listening to audiobooks on your phone is such a good experience, and the AirPods are becoming ubiquitous. So more and more people, while they wouldn't have been seen with headphones with the little dangly cable, they're happy to put the AirPods in their ears. And we finally have some meaningful competition for Audible. Audible is the whole market, but now there's a whole new group of readers who are discovering audiobooks through Spotify. And I think it's going to keep being a growing part of the pie, which I'm a big fan of. I think you're not a real author if you don't have an audiobook, because the audiobook is the original format. That's how books were experienced 1,000 years ago and 2,000 years ago. Audio is how people experience. Hearers of the word, not doers of the word. Goes but whack. I have lots to say on this, many rants, but I will stop.
Am I doing number 4? I feel like you just talked about it.
So no, this is funny because this is read it. This
AI narration becomes normal in the low and mid tiers, and premium human narration becomes a louder selling point. Audible and ACX keep expanding AI options, which will flood the market with good enough audio, while big releases lean harder into celebrity narrators and performance quality.
What you just heard, ladies and gentlemen, was a human trying to sound like a robot, reporting on what a robot wrote about robots narrating books written by humans in a way to sound like humans. We've come full circle. Audio narration, the deep fakes, voice clones have gotten really good. I think we're definitely going to see more of this. And it's starting to happen where I'm having people in my family are sending me videos, like YouTube videos, that they don't realize are narrated by AI, that the whole video is an AI video. They don't know it because they can't tell the AI voices from the human voices, because the AI sounds more human than Jonathan sounds trying to sound AI.
So all I'm doing is I'm addicted to these courtroom videos on YouTube right now, and they have this stupid AI narrator that comes in. I'm just imitating that. And also my daughter is obsessed with the Wild Robot movie, which is really good, by the way. And
okay, Jonathan, hit us with the next prediction.
Yeah.
The chat demands more robot Jonathan.
Amazon's DRM-free EPUB PDF downloads reshape author behavior and piracy risk calculations.
Starting January 20th, 2026, verified purchasers can download EPUB PDF for DRM-free Kindle books. Authors will split into two camps: convenience first authors who go DRM free, and control first authors who keep DRM on for new releases.
This is a nuclear bomb that no one is talking about, because if people can get DRM free books, they can feed your book to AI without your permission. Nobody is looking at this from the AI angle. And I think authors are going to see that their sales go up when they turn off DRM, because all the AI companies are going to buy copies, because the courts have made it very clear that as long as you acquire the copy legally, you can use it for training AI.
It's just reading it, right?
Right.
Yep.
And there's a lot of AI companies that could buy your book. And so that's free sales effectively. So look for the drama on this story to increase. We've reported on it before. You can find it in our backlist. We'll go to the next one.
Exclusivity gets more porous, and libraries become a more strategic channel for KU authors. The KU to library exception changes how authors think about wide versus exclusive, because it adds discovery without forcing a full distribution shift.
It's interesting. ChatGPT cited Author Media for this.
That's funny.
We reported on this. I found that ChatGPT loves our website. It's actually making doing research a little harder, because I'm finding my own stuff surfacing in the research. It's like, I already know what I think about this.
Feedback loop. Oh no.
We'll see how much of an impact this has, just because Amazon is allowing KU authors to submit their books to libraries. That doesn't mean that libraries are going to buy lots of KU author books. So it's kind of like you had a couple in a romantic comedy, and neither of them liked the other one. Well, now one of them is like, oh, she's kind of cute, but she's like, I still think he's an obnoxious jerk, right? So for the actual thing to happen, for the relationship to move forward, they both have to say yes. So the fact that one of them has said yes is only one step in this process. So maybe not.
Book Talk influence shifts from discovery to deal making. Creators will get pulled deeper into cover reveals, packaging feedback, influencer additions, and even imprint-style partnerships, because publishers want repeatable distribution, not one viral spike.
It'll be interesting to see if the Books Talk store actually has an impact on sales. I don't think that this is going to grow. I think Book Talk we're already at peak Book Talk. I don't think we'll see more, but I could be wrong.
Romance stays the economic engine, and romantasy stays the cultural engine. You will see more hybrids, more big emotion positioning, and continued demand signals from unusual places that still track broader culture.
Oh, I hope not. Romantasy. These smut books are so bad for society, for civilization,
and now they're bleeding into every other
for
genre.
Humanity as a whole. It's really, really bad.
I made a joke on X that almost went viral, because somebody's like, they're going to come into our house and pull us out in a state of undress. And so I said a joke. I'm like, wait, why are you in a state of undress? Are they undressing you on the way out? And I was like, oh, that would be the next big genre, ATF romance. It's like love on ice.
I will say romantasy has been what's making Barnes & Noble open more stores. It's where all the money's at right now, because the publishing business and the adult entertainment business is much bigger measured by dollars, and publishing is starting to gobble up some of that money. And there's a lot of money there. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Speaking of which, speaking of censoring inappropriate content, let's go to number 10.
Oh, we're going to 10 now? Okay.
Oh, sorry. Number 9.
Okay. Screen adaptations keep juicing the backlist, which changes acquisition strategy. More titles get acquired and marketed with filmable hooks, and more authors learn to time promos around trailer drops instead of publication dates.
This isn't new. This happens every year.
Yeah, whatever.
It will continue. It's like teenagers will continue dressing in ways that offend their parents. It's like, no. I was watching this Betty Boop cartoon from 1930 because Betty Boop's entered the public domain. So I'm doing research, and I'm like, wow, this is really salacious. I'm like, there is nothing new under the sun.
Gasp. Censorship pressure remains a real operational constraint, not just a political argument. It will affect school/library purchasing, author event risk, and how publishers position YA and issue-driven books, because bans are still widespread even when the counts fluctuate year to year.
These are not bans. I will say this again. You do not deserve to have a library buy your book. And if your book is inappropriate for children, then it's not a ban that they choose not to purchase your book.
So many people yelled at us for that.
I don't care. You're all wrong.
I don't care either. It's like,
books-
be gone. Like, go away then, okay? Like,
Books
whatever.
that are inappropriate for children should not be placed in school libraries. I will die on this hill. It's like,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Adult books with adult content should not be given to children, and you don't have a right to use tax dollars to buy that book. If you, with your own dollars, want to buy that book at Barnes & Noble, you have the right to do that. It's not actually a banned book. It's like the library, you don't have a right to have the book by your book from the library, and the libraries have already banned all the conservative books. You can't find conservative books at the library, right? And nobody's whining about the fact that the Tuttle twins got kicked out of the library
Thomas, you're
because they're
ranting
conservative.
Thomas, you're ranting again. Breathe.
Read the next prediction.
AI training rights become a standard contract battlefield. More publishers explore licensing or opt-in frameworks, and more authors demand clearer consent language and a defined revenue split because these deals are no longer theoretical.
I don't know if I agree with this. With the courts all ruling that training with AI is exceedingly transformative, it means that you don't need to have, if that keeps being upheld, that exceeding transformative standard, it means it's all public domain. So as long as the book is legally acquired, they don't need a licensing deal.
So
you can put whatever you want in the contract, but if Anthropic can just buy your book for $10 or $20 and train on it, then that's all they have to pay.
I don't know. I think they're going to make an addition to where licensing is the big deal. You have to buy an AI training license. Just like you need a license to go hunting or fishing.
That
or
would require
like
Congress
that.
to pass a law, Jonathan. Do you know how many laws they passed last year? Less than
That's
10.
just what they're going to be going for. I mean, that's the easiest fix is just licensing.
They're going to want it, sure. But to pass a law, you have to get Congress to pass a law, and they're not. The congressional branch is completely broken in the United States. Until we reform the filibuster and actually go back to majority rule, nothing gets done.
And AI companies have all the money. Like, in terms of dollars, they're the ones that are going to have the power.
Everyone is totally fine with the legislative branch passing no laws but the budget. And as long as everyone's fine with that, and we'll have people in our comment section be like, no, the filibuster is important. It allows senators to deliberate and think about what they're doing. No, it doesn't.
They don't even show up.
They don't even read
they're
the
not
bills.
even there.
I love this idealistic world that you live in. It's like my sweet summer child. They're not contemplating nothing.
They're making TikTok videos in the hallway.
They enjoy the lack of accountability. If they don't get any bills passed and they complain somebody else, none of the problems are their fault, and they can keep going. I'm running out of we're running out.
Yeah. Direct sales keep growing, but only for authors who treat it like a business unit. Tools make it easier, but the winners will be the authors who build repeatable traffic, list growth, and fulfillment workflows, because direct is leverage, not a rescue plan.
Yeah, I agree with this. The only way to sell direct is to already have discovered a way of generating demand for your books.
Yeah.
And so until you can get people excited about your books, and until you know how to do that, selling direct isn't going to make it work. This is why I did my whole Shopify trap episode. I did a whole episode on this, where a lot of authors who aren't getting a lot of sales, they're selling less than 1,000 units a month. They think that, if I can sell direct on Shopify, I'll sell more copies. Like, no, Shopify is not a way of selling more copies. It's about making more money from the copies that you're selling.
It's not a discovery mechanism, and Amazon comes with a built-in discovery mechanism.
So I also asked Gemini for predictions. We won't do the whole AI reading thing, but I thought some of its predictions were pretty good. It's predicting that premium books are going to continue growing. I agree with that. It has this concept of trophy books, deluxe editions that people put on their shelves. As long as the millennials and Gen Zers are still building out their bookshelves, I think that's going to be true. It's predicting a golden era of audiobooks, which might be true. It's the beginning of the golden era because the variety of audiobook options is exploding. It used to be most books didn't have an audiobook, and if you had an audiobook, you had one version, the narrated version. Now you have like full cast, dramatization, AI, professional narrator. You might have multiple of those options on the same audiobook. So,
I don't know. I think it's fool's gold era.
It's the Gilded Age for audiobooks.
Just AI narration, I can't get into it. I don't like it. I know that it's a computer reading from a script and trying to create something it thinks will relate to me, and I resist that kind of thing when I feel like I'm being manipulated anyway. It doesn't appeal to me, but then again, I'm not mainstream. I'm not baseline. So maybe we'll see what consumers think. And that's another thing going along with the buying direct thing is that authors love the idea of selling direct because it's good for the author. Okay. But you have to understand the reader is making decisions based on what's good for the reader.
Right.
And the reader
and
wants
it's
to go
more
to their favorite
friction
store to buy their book.
If I already have one-click checkout set up on Amazon, which like 150 million readers already have, it's more friction to buy from you directly. And so you have to give readers a good reason to type in their credit card number and type in their shipping address and their billing
Kickstarter
address.
is selling direct, and it works because you're adding all these goodies along with it, and also they feel like they're part of an event. That works for the reader. That's the benefit they're getting out of it. So stop thinking about yourself as the author benefiting if you're going to sell direct or go wherever or do whatever. Take whatever stance you want. I was talking about this in the writing group earlier. You know, there's lots of anti-Amazon authors who sell 4 copies lifetime.
But they didn't sell them on Amazon, Jonathan.
They didn't sell them on
Amazon. They
Amazon.
took a principled stand.
So, you know, they're thinking about themselves and the stance they want to take. But if their readers are buying from Amazon or Barnes & Noble or, you know, the thrift store, then that's where you need to go and find your reader.
Kelly is asking about audiobook narration as a career. I think that I think demand is going up, but the supply of narrators is also going up, and you're getting price competition from the low end from these really high-end AIs. And so if you're wanting to make audiobook narration a career, I think branding is really key. You need to pick a super, super narrow niche. You need to become the #1 voice in that niche where you become a brand unto yourself, where readers are finding authors through you. And then you can keep getting the prices that you were getting. Otherwise, I think we're moving towards commoditization.
You can't be AI quality. You know,
right.
You got to be a good storyteller.
And there are millions of audiobook quality microphones floating around now, where a lot of authors like, gosh, I can do this myself. Can they? Maybe, but they're now pricing you against them doing themselves. It's kind of like being a plumber with like a handyman kind of boomer dad type who's like, I can fix this sink myself. And they nickel and dime you, and they're constantly arguing with the price over, say, a Gen Z homeowner, or not jokers. None of the Gen Zers are buying houses.
There's no Gen Z homeowners. What are you talking about?
Poor Gen Z. They're really getting a short end of the stick.
Yeah, I feel bad.
But a millennial homeowner is not very handy. It's like, oh, it's $500 to fix. Thank you so much for fixing it for me. Right? It's very different kind of experience. So we didn't get to the Zeitgeist hamburger, which I'm really bummed because this was a really good one. But I've got to jump over to Obscure No More. So it's Obscure No More office hours. If you're in Obscure No More, I'm going straight. Well, I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll go over to the office hours for Q&A. If you're not an Obscure No More student, this is my course that has all of my platform building courses bundled into it. So how to build an email list, how to build a website, how to build a brand, how to podcast if you want to podcast, how to public speak if you want to public speak. Basically, every piece of it, all the courses are all bundled in. It's a subscription, and it comes with a monthly Q&A where I actually have a lot of time to answer questions and go deep. So you're welcome to join me over there if you're a student. If you're not a student, you have 5 minutes to get a subscription. And otherwise, we'll be back next week with the hamburger Zeitgeist story. I've done a lot of research on this, and
I'm also
very
going to talk
excited
about
it.
Stranger Things because that blew up this last week.
Yeah, so
Uh,
we ran out of time. It was supposed to be a slow news day, but we had a lot of predictions, and I started ranting about book bans again. I'm sorry.
like the video, subscribe to the channel. Come and watch us next time. If you're trying to write a novel in January, go to the sign up link to the Google form so I can get your information in, so I can get you in by the session 0 tomorrow. Once session 0 starts, I'm not taking anybody else because it's a lot of work for me to do, and I'm not adding people on when the work actually starts. So use that link. I'll throw it in under the description here. Show up for Author Arsenal Writing Challenge.
Live long, prosper, and love thy reader.